Hello all, welcome to Constellation Training and Placement Services training courses. My name is Vivek Gaurav and today we are going to solve one question paper of TCS NQT exam for the coding section. We shall follow it up with a series of videos of test paper solutions and also conduct live classes for you. During this session, we will solve 10 MCQ questions and 2 coding questions. So without wasting any time, let's start and share my screen. The next one. The in-order and pre-order traversal of a binary tree are D, B, E, A, F, C, G and A, B, D, E, C, F, G respectively. The post-order traversal of the binary tree is. So they have given us the in-order and pre-order and then they're asking us the post-order. Okay. So now if you know the in-order, what happens in in-order is that you go to the left. Okay. Then what you do is that you go to the parent and then you go to the right. Okay, so basically in left, what is the sequence? For in order, the sequence is left, parent, and then you go to the right one. Okay, for pre-order, what happens is that you start with the parent. Okay, you start with the parent, then you go to the left, then you go to the right. Okay, so now look at it. So now we know that in pre-order, the first element is going to the parent node. Okay, so the first one is going to the parent node. So here we got A. A is going to be our parent node for sure. So we got A. Then what we are doing is that we know that in the then if we have found the parent, like if we have found the parent and on the left, whatever is there, that will come on the left and whatever comes on the right will come on the right. So now we know that here, this part is going to be on the left and this part is going to be on the right. Now the next question is that which among these will be in the left and which among these will be on the right. So the next we will find B. Okay, so again we will separate it from B. So now D will be on the left and E will be on the right. Okay, so now we got it. So next is going to be B, and here we are going to have D, and here we are going to have E. Similarly, in the similar fashion, we have C. Okay, we have C, then we have F, and then we have G. So this is the tree that we are having. Okay, this is the tree. Now the question is that the post order traversal. So now in post order traversal, what we do is that we go to the left, we go to the right, and then we go to the parent. Okay, so we'll start with D, we'll go with E, then we'll go with B, then we'll start with F, then we'll go with G, then we'll go with C, and then we'll go with A. So finally it is going to be D, E, B, and then it is going to be F, G, and C, and then it is going to be A. So the correct option is A. Okay, I have given the whole detailed explanation over here as well, and I have made the tree as well. Okay, so you can look at it, and the way is that in the pre-order, you get the parent first, so you separate it, then again you got the parent, again you separated this on the left, this on the right, right? And in the same way, if you make the tree, and after making the tree, it becomes very simple because the post-order traversal is like, the left subtree, the right subtree, and finally the root node, finally the parent. So this, and then this, and then this, okay? 1, 2, 3, and then you have 4, 5, 6, okay? And this becomes the 7 one, okay? This is how the right order is. Okay, now the next question. Now the question is that how many times will the below loop will be executed? Okay, the below loop will be executed. This is the question. Okay, and it is starting with x and y. X is 5. Okay, it starts with x is equal to 5. Then you have x greater than equal to 1, x minus minus. Okay, and then you have y is equal to 1, y less than equal to 4. So 1, and then it will go till 1 less than equal to 5. So basically what will happen is that for the value of 5, okay, y will be 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 5. When the value of y became 4, it is going to start with 1, 2, 3, and then 4. When the value of this became 3, it is going to be 1, 2, and then 3. When the value of x became 2, it is going to be 1 and 2. When the value of x became 1, the value of y is going to be 1. So now you see how many times 5, and then you have 4, and then you have 3, and then you have 2, and then you have 1. Add all of them together. So 5 plus 4, 9, plus 3, 12, plus 2, 14, 1, 15. So the correct answer is going to be 15. Let us look at the option. The first one is 15. Blindly go with that, and the correct option is going to be the 15 one. Okay, how did we do that? We took a dry run. So it's starting, the x is starting from 5. So for 5 times this inner loop will run, right? And then it will become 4. So again, 4 times it is going to run because y less than equal to x is the condition, right? Y less than equal to 5 is the condition given over here. So it will run 5 times, and it will run 4 times, and 3 times, and 2 times, finally 1 time. Okay, so total of 15 times. Now the next question. The DAS presents a uniform device access interface to the I/O subsystem, much as the system calls provide a standard interface between the application and the operating system. So the correct option here is the device driver. It is a very much from the theory part, so nothing much over here to discuss. So the correct option is device driver. Okay, so I am going ahead with that. Now the next one, what is the output of this C code? Now this one, see here, static int x is equal to 5, void main, x is equal to 9, printf, and then the options are 5, 4, 9, and none of these. Now this is a controversial question. Many people are coming with a different answer. Some people are coming with 5, some people are coming with 9, some people, sometimes they answer 4 as well. I don't know why, but they have answered 4 as well. Okay, so now the correct answer is going to be 9. Okay, in case you don't believe me, what I will do is that I'll stop my screen share. I will go to the dev C++ window. Okay, and I will delete everything from here and I will write the code for you. Okay, so let's write it, hash include, okay, stdio.h, then int main. Sorry, before that, before int main, they had int static. Okay, x is equal to 9, they have x is equal to 5, they have, okay, x is equal to 5, then they have the main part. Then here what they are doing is that they are writing x is equal to 9, and then what they are doing is that they are just printing x. Okay, they are just printing percentile d and they are just printing x. That's it, they are doing nothing else, they are doing. Okay, semicolon and then return 0. Okay, so now let me just compile it and run it and show it to you. You can see the answer coming as 9. Okay, the answer is coming as 9. Okay, so now though static reserves the value, but once the value has been changed, the same value will be used everywhere. Okay, so that's the point. And the correct answer is going to be the ninth one. Okay, static variable has a property of preserving their value even after they are out of scope, and can preserve its value in the previous scope and can be used again without initializing it. But here we are changing it, so this value will be referenced everywhere. So the correct answer is going to be the 9. Okay, we have already seen the output as well. Now let's go to the next question. So the output of the below code, hash include stdio.h, void main int a is equal to 5, if true print hello. There is a semicolon over here. Now again, this also, some people come up with like, they feel like, it will throw an error. They feel like there will be no output. It will display hello. So before I answer it, what I will do is that I'll just write the code for you so that you can see the output. Okay, and then we will go ahead. So I have stopped the screen share. I'll go to dev C++. I'll remove everything. Okay, and then what I will do is that I'll type the code for you. So hash include stdio.h, and then we have int main. Okay, and then we had int a is equal to 5. Okay, and then we had what, if true, and then we had a semicolon over here. Okay, and then we had printf. I'm just including that indentation so that it follows the same thing. Let's see if we get an error for that or what. Okay, let's see if we get an error for that or what. Okay, and then what I have to do is that I have to return 0. Okay, let's see if we are getting any error. Sorry. Okay, compile and run. So we are seeing that hello. Okay, so as you can see, there is no error coming up here. We are directly getting. Now what is happening over here is that even if you write if true and then we give a semicolon, it means what, this statement has been terminated. Now this okay, will be treated as an independent line, will be treated as an independent line. Okay, and this is what comment is. Okay, this is what I'm doing right now. This is the comment part. Okay, here the statement got executed, who got terminated, not terminate, executed, got terminated, and there is no body of this loop. There is no body of this loop. Okay, this is what it is. Okay, so this is the comment which I just used right now, so that as we talked about the first question, right, comment, this is how it is comment. Okay, what you can do is that in the beginning you can write the date creation as well. Date, you can write the date, that is 29 January 2021. Okay, and then you can write program written, or you can write author. Okay, author, you can write your name. I'm writing my name, author Vivek Gaurav. What is the purpose? TCS NQT examination preparation. Okay, this is what the comment is. So I hope the things are clear now. Okay, if you want to make it a multi-line comment, what you have to do is that you have to do like this, and as you can see, everything got commented, right? And what we have to do is that, sorry, what we have to do over here is that you just give the enter, go over there, give us a star and give a slash. So only this part got commented. This is multi-line comment. Okay, this is multi-line comment. Okay, so now we'll go back to the slide. So let me start the preparation. Great. Okay, so now I can see it. So now you got the answer. So it will display hello. Okay, this is the answer. Don't get confused that it will throw an error or no output or depends on compiler. Nothing as such. It will directly display hello to you. Now let's go to the next question. What type of array is generated generally in command line argument? Okay. Now, if I have to answer for it, okay, if when I was in my college days, if I had to answer this, I would have said multi-dimensional array is not going to be no. Two-dimensional array, I know it, it cannot be. Single-dimensional array, I know it, it cannot be. It looks like jagged array because it is a new term, and I believe the other three I know I am familiar with that and they cannot be there. So, right, I will go with the correct option as B. And if you would have done that thought of thinking, you are right. But still, the question is that what is a jagged array? So let's understand that. Okay. So now, as I said, jagged array is the correct answer. So jagged array is an array of array where there is a variable number of columns in each row. Okay. The number of columns in each row varies. Like here you see for row number 1, we have 3 column. For row number 2, we have 2. Sorry, row number 1, we have 2. For row number 2, we are having 5. And for row number 3, we are having just 1. So the number of columns are varying. Okay, this type of array is called as jagged array. So basically with command line argument, you get jagged array. Okay, the number of columns is not fixed. Okay, now let's move to the 17th question. Which of the following does not require to include math.h? Okay, power, it does require math.h. Random, I'm not sure. SQRT needs it, signage needs it. Okay, so since I'm not sure it, random is going to be the one. Though it is a random number, random function generates a random number between a given range, but it is a part of stdlib.h, standard library. It is a part of standard library. Okay, this is a part of standard library. Rest all 1, 3 and 4, these are part of math.h. Okay, these are part of math.h. Okay, the correct answer is random. Okay, we have given the description over here as well, and we have given the random function as well. Okay, you can read it. I'm not going to discuss over here because that was a straightforward question. Now going to the next question, question number 18. A complete binary tree with the property that value at each node is at least as large as the value at its children is known as AVL tree. If you are answering this, it is going to be a wrong answer. Most people will have, whenever I have asked that, they say AVL is the right answer. No, it is not. The correct answer is heap. Okay, the correct answer is heap. There are two kind of heaps which are there. Okay, max heap, mean heap. Okay, so the correct answer is heap. So a binary tree with the property that value at each node is at least as large as the value at its children is known as heap. Okay, always remember, don't go with AVL. Most of the time, you don't feel like, you seem like, okay, this can be the one. Not every time it happens, it turns out to be true. Okay, so keep in mind, AVL is not going to the right answer. The right answer is heap. Okay, and there are two type of heap as we talked about, min heap and max heap. Okay, min heap, and we have another one as max heap. Okay, these are the two types of heap that we have. Okay, sometime, we'll make another video on this topic so that you can understand about it. Okay, but for the time being, we will just continue with the option D. Okay, now let's look at the question number 19. What type of data structure is used to create an internal space for parameters and local variable? And your teacher might have told you n number of time, it is a stack. Okay, for parameters and local variable, stack is used. Okay, stack is used. You know what is stack? Stack is first in, first out, or last in, last out. Last in, first out. It is LIFO or FIFO. Okay, so basically stack is FIFO. This is a stack. Last in, first out. Okay, for FIFO it is Q. Q is FIFO. Okay, first in, first out. Remember the railway station example. You go to the railway station counter first. If you are there at the first counter, this is counter. If you are there first, you will be the one who will get the ticket first. So this is queue. You make a queue over there. You don't make a stack. Okay, but for variable and local parameter, there is a stack. Okay, remember that. Now going to the next one. Stack is the answer. Going to the next one. What does the following declaration mean? So here we have int bracket asterisk ptr 10. Okay, now here people sometime end up answering this. PTR is an array of pointer to 10 integer. And I always say that your answer would have been right had the question been a bit different. Had the question been something like, int and then asterisk ptr, and then you had bracket 10, then you would have, if you had have answered this, your answer would have been absolutely fine. But here there is an additional thing which is bracket, asterisk ptr. Now that changes the whole game. That small bracket changes the whole game, and the correct answer to this becomes the B one. Okay, so instead of array of pointer, it becomes a pointer to an array. Okay, instead of from array of pointer, which you were thinking of this is now a pointer to an array, which are two different concepts. Okay, so look at this. PTR is a pointer to an array of 10 integer. This is the right option, B. And now you look at this. Bracket means P is now a pointer to an integer, where asterisk P10 means P is an array of 10 integer pointer. Okay, this is the difference. Here we have talked about array of pointer and pointer of array. So pointer may be added like any data type to assign the address of an integer value called var to third element of the pointer array. We write ptr2 is equal to and var. To find the value of var, we write asterisk ptr2. This is what we do. But here what happens is that pointer to an array is a single pointer that holds the address of any of an array of variables. In the above case, it is an array integer. Okay, so these are two different concepts. So pointer to array and array to pointer, don't get confused with that. Okay, read more about that. So now with that, we are done with the MCQ part. Now what we are going to do is that we are going to solve two coding one question. So the next question is pretty simple. The next question is that write a program to find the factorial of a number using function. Okay, this is a straightforward question. This can be written in two ways using a normal function, right? You can write it using a normal function, or what you can do is that you can write a recursion. Okay, so I will write it in both ways. Okay, I'll write it in both ways. Okay, so I'm stopping the screen share and then I'm sharing my dev C++ screen once again. I'll delete everything and then I'll start hash include stdio.h and then sorry, I didn't write the void main and I gave the bracket. Okay, void main, and better I'll make it int because sometime you get error here in dev C++. Int main, and then you have int uh, okay, it was asking you to create a function. I didn't create that, so let me create it. Okay, so what I will do is that I'll create int Fibonacci. Okay, I'll create int Fibonacci, right? Sorry, it was factorial. Okay, I'm getting confused because just now I did Fibonacci, so it is int factorial. Okay, I'll just write that and I'll take int n. This is what you have to do, and then what you have to do is that you have to you just have to write fact is equal to 1. You just have to take that and then you will take I to run a loop. That's it. These are the two variables you need, and then we can check it. You always check it, like if n is equal to 0, then you directly return 1. You don't need it. Okay, you don't need to do anything else. You directly return 1. Okay, else if you can check about less than 0, but I'm not including that part here. I'm including else part here. What I have to do is that for I is equal to 1, I less than equal to n, and then I plus plus. And what you have to do inside the for loop, it's very simple. You just have to write fact is equal to fact into I. That's what you have to do. Okay, sorry, not plus but into I. Okay, that's what you have to do. And then here what you have to do is that you have to return fact. That's what. Okay, now here what you will do is that in the main part, of course, you have to write intn. You have to take an input from the user. Then what you will do is that printf, you will ask the user to enter a number, enter a number. Okay, I'm just keeping it simple. I'm not giving much more much detailed explanation. Percentile d, and then what you do is that you write ampersand n. You will store in n, and then what you will do is that we'll just if okay, here we can check that here as well, whether the n is less than 0. If it is less than 0, then we will directly give a message printf. Okay, printf invalid output. Okay, invalid input, not output, invalid input. Okay, but if it is not so, then what we are going is that we will just write else part printf factorial of the number is factorial of the number is, I'm just giving it a formatted output, that's it, nothing else. I will directly write here factorial and I'll call it with n, and then I'll give a semicolon and then return 0. Okay, I'll just match it if the factorial spelling is right or not. So I just do it like that and then compile. So here it is. Okay, I missed the semicolon over here. There also I missed the semicolon. So I'll just write over those and then compile and run. Okay, here also I've missed it. Okay, not an issue. Compile and run. Okay, so let's suppose 5. So I'm giving 120. Let's run it one more time. Compile and run. I'm running 5 and then I'm getting 120. Okay, sorry, I wanted to do it for 6, so I'll do it for 6 and then I'll get 720. Okay, so the correct output is coming. Great. Now in case you wanted to do it with factorial, so I'll just add a few lines here. So this is normal function. Okay, I'll just write it the same thing for recursion. Okay, so I'll give comment over it. This is using recursion. Okay. So now here what I will do is that int fact, okay, int n, and then here what I'm going to do is that if n is okay, if n is equal to 0, then what you do is that the same thing which we did over there, what you will do is that you'll just return, sorry, return 1. Okay, else what we are going to do is that we are going to return n into fact of n minus 1. That's what we do using recursion. Okay, so now we will just have a similar output. Okay, so what I will do is that I'll just include a bracket of it and I'll just cut it once and I'll paste it here and then I'll paste it one more time over here, factorial of the function, and here I will write using recursion so that you can see the same thing, and here I will write fact. Okay, now let's save it and let's run it, compile and run. So here I write 5, I'm getting the same thing. Okay, I'll just have to use it one more formatted output. Here I'll give backslash n, or here I can give it, that will be much more suitable. Okay, here I'll give a backslash n so that I get a formatted output. Now if I enter 6, factorial of the number is 720, both the things are getting the right. Okay, so that's what you do. Okay, and this is how you write for recursion. You call the same function inside the function. We are calling fact inside the fact function. Okay, so these were the questions that were there. Okay, now it's time for us to have a look at the coding 2 question. Okay, so let me share my screen with all of you so that you can see the screen. Great, so I believe all of you can see the screen, right? Now look at the question. There is a total n number of monkeys, okay, sitting on the branch of a huge tree. As traveler offer bananas and peanuts, the monkeys jump down the tree. If every monkey can eat k bananas and j peanut, okay, if total m number of bananas and p number of peanuts are offered by a traveler, calculate how many monkeys remain on the tree after some of them jump down to eat. At a time, one monkey gets down and finishes eating and go to the other side of the road. The monkey who climbed down does not climb up again after eating until the other monkey finish eating. Monkey can either eat K banana or J peanut. If for last monkey there are less than K bananas left on the ground or less than J peanut left on the ground, only then that monkey can eat less than K along with peanut less than j. Okay, write a code to take input as nmpkj, nmpkj. These are the input we need to have. Okay, nmpkj, and return the number of monkeys left on the tree. Okay, where n is equal to total number of monkeys. So k is equal to total number of eatable banana, j is equal to total number of eatable peanut. Okay, j is total number of eatable peanut we have. After that we have total number of bananas, which is m, and total number of peanut is p. Now remember that monkey always eat bananas and peanuts, so there is no possibility of k and j having 0 value. Fine. Input value is 20 to 3. Okay, so 20 I believe is the number of monkeys, that is n. Then 2 will be the number of bananas they can eat. Okay, 2 will be the number of bananas they can eat, and 3 will be the number of peanuts that they can eat, and these are the number of bananas and peanuts. Okay, so let us find out. Okay, total number of bananas m and total number of peanut p. Okay, So total number of bananas is M and total number of peanut is P. So this is what it is. Now after that, what will be these two, 2 and 3? Let's try to figure it out that number of eatable peanut by single monkey. Okay, K and J. It is going to be K and J. It is going to be K and J. So the input is going to be N, K, J, M, and P. In this format, we have to take the input. Fine. Now let's try to understand once again. I'll remove all the inks. Okay, now here. So there are n number of monkeys sitting on the branch. As traveler offer bananas and peanut, the monkey jumped down the tree. Fair enough. If every monkey can eat K bananas, okay, and J peanuts, so it is written, okay, there is a limit for each monkey to eat bananas. Okay, a monkey can eat a maximum of K bananas and a maximum of J peanut. Okay, if we will go with the input that is given, I believe this is 2 and this is 3. Okay, a monkey can have a maximum of 2 bananas and can have a maximum of 3 peanuts, not more than that. How many bananas and peanuts are being offered? M number of bananas and P number of peanuts are being offered. If you go with the question, that is 12 and 12. Both are 12 and 12. So basically, 12 number of bananas and 12 number of peanuts are being offered by the traveler. Okay, let me just remove everything and write it once again. Okay, so this is 2, this is 2, this is 3. Okay, and this is 12 and this is 12. Okay, this is 12. Now there is an assumption given over here. At a time, one monkey gets down and finishes eating and go to the other side of the road. The monkey who climbed down does not climb up again. So they don't want to make it complex. So that's the reason they have given it this part. Okay. Now monkey can either eat K banana or J peanut. So they cannot eat together until and unless the banana is less than their capacity, what they can eat, or the peanut is less than what they can eat. Then only they will go for the other one. Otherwise, they will not go. And n is the total number of monkey that is given, which is given at 12 in the question. Okay, so now let us try to solve it first with this value. Okay, so we have n is equal to 12. Okay, now output value with these should come as 10. So now let us try to see if our logic is correct, what we're thinking. Okay, 12 uh, 12 monkeys are there. Okay, now how many bananas each monkey can eat? They can eat two, maximum two bananas and three peanut maximum. Now what, how many? 12 bananas are being offered by the people. 12 bananas are being offered by the people. So how many monkey can eat in that? Divided by 12 divided by 6. 12 divided by 2, which is 6. Okay, so 6 monkey can eat the bananas which is being offered by the people. Now let's find out the peanut. So 12 peanuts are being offered. Okay, this is banana and this is peanut. Okay, this is banana and this is peanut. Don't get confused. Now each monkey can eat 3 peanut at a time. So 4 monkeys can eat that, right? 4 monkeys can eat that. And the monkey which ate came down from the tree. So basically, how many monkey came down from the tree? Total of 10 monkeys came down, right? So how many monkeys are left? Total of 20 were there. So 20 minus 10, it became 10 monkeys are left on the tree. And this is what it is given. So see how simple it became, right? How simple. And now it is very easy for us to write the program because now we have understood the whole logic, right? What you have to do is that you have to take the input, divide the total number of bananas being offered by the number of bananas they can eat. You got one number of monkey. Divide the total number of peanut which has been offered to them by the total number of peanut they can eat. You will get another set of monkey which will eat banana, which will eat peanut. Add these two and subtract it from the total number of monkeys. You will get the number of monkeys left on the tree. That's the only thing you have to do. Okay, so without wasting any time, let us go to the coding. Okay, so now let me delete everything and now I'll write it once again. Okay, so hash include, I'll write the program in C, stdio dot h. Okay, no doubt till here. It's very simple. Int main. Now you must be entering, some people write int main, some people write void main. So it's very simple. It is all about the return type. I want to return a 0, right? That's the reason I have done that. So, okay, so now n is the total number of monkeys. Then we have k, which is the maximum number of banana monkey can eat. Then we have j, which is the maximum number of peanut a monkey can have. Then I have m, okay, which is the total number of bananas offered, and we have p, which is the total number of peanut offered. Okay, so now we got all the inputs here. Okay, let's see is this they have any other thing over here. Okay, did they have, remember? Okay, no, they didn't have any other thing. Okay, so now it's fine. So now int nkj mp. Okay, now what we have to do is that we have to take two float values because it can be 8 banana can be it can be in decimal if it is less than that, right? And 8 peanut, these are the two values that I'm taking in float and assigning it 0.0. Okay, later on we'll see. Now scanf I have to take all the inputs. So 5 inputs are there. So percentile D, right? Sorry, no comma will be there. Percentile D, percentile D, percentile D, percentile D. How many I took? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Fine. 5 are there. And where I have to store them? I have to store them in N, and then K will be there, and then J will be there in the same sequence, and I have declared it basically, right? And then M will be there, and then P will be there. N, K, J, M, and P. Fine, I got all the input. Then what I have to do is that first of all, they should not be less than 0. So if N less than 0, or okay, I'll just copy these. Why will I write it again and again? I'll just try to save some time. Okay, paste 5 times. Okay, fifth one I don't need it, and then I'll keep on changing the value. K, and then J, and then M, and then P. Okay, if any of them are less than 0, then we have to just write printf in your input is invalid, invalid input. That's it, nothing else. That's the only thing we have to do. Okay, now we will come into the else part. Okay, now we'll come into the else part. Now in the else part, what do we have to do? Okay, so if k is greater than 0, okay, what is k? You remember what is k? K is the number of K is the number of, I also forgot what is K. Okay, monkey can eat. Okay, monkey can eat bananas. Only that monkey can eat bananas. Okay, K. Okay, so K is a maximum number of bananas they can eat, and J is the maximum number of peanut they can eat. Okay, so I'm writing if K is greater than 0. Okay, now you will must be wondering why I'm doing that, because if I have to check that whether the K is 0 or not. Then only I'll be able to find. If it is become less than 0, then there won't be any point of doing that. And then what I'll be doing is that I'll be converting it into float. I'll be converting it into float, right? And I'll be writing M. M is the total number of bananas offered divided by K. Okay, because if it will become less than 0, then this value will become negative. I don't want that. That's the reason I have put that condition, nothing else. Okay, similarly, if the number of peanut is greater than 0, the number of peanut they can eat is greater than 0, then 8 peanut, okay, will be what? Float. Okay, and here total number of peanut they can eat, which is J, which is total number of peanut which was offered, which was P, and total number of peanut they can eat, which is J. Okay, this is what it is. And then what I have to do is that N is equal to N minus 8 banana, okay, minus 8 peanut. That's it. Okay, I reduce everything and I stored it in N itself, and then printf number of monkeys left on the tree is percentile D. Okay, and here I'll write N. That's the only thing I have to do. After this, I'll return 0, and I believe this is done, right? Let's try to compile it and run. Okay, so there it is saying in function int main expected float. Okay, float spelling is wrong. float. No, float spelling is right only. So what is wrong over here? Okay, there is a equal to sign missing, if you have noticed that. Okay, great. So that was the missing part. I missed that equal to sign. And then it is saying int monster function. So did I miss something over here as well? What did I miss? Let's try to check that. Okay, semicolon is expecting, it is expecting a semicolon somewhere. Here the semicolon is missing. Sorry, these kind of mistakes just keeps on popping up. Okay, so now it's time for us to enter the values. And if you remember the input, I also don't remember it. So let's do, okay, 12, 2, 3, 12, 12, 20, 2, 3, 12, 12. Okay, so now, okay, 20, 2, 3, 12, okay, and then 12. I should get 10. Number of monkeys left on the tree is 10. See, everything is perfect. No error. Everything is working fine. 20 is the number of monkeys, total number of monkeys. 2 is the number of bananas they can eat. A maximum banana a monkey can eat. Maximum peanut. 3 is the maximum number of peanut they can eat. 12 is the total number of bananas offered. 12 is the total number of peanut offered. And finally, after doing all the calculation, the number of monkeys left on the tree is what? The number of monkey left on the tree is 10. Okay, so you saw that it was not at all tricky. The only thing which was there is that, okay, the question was so lengthy that half of the people would have given up here itself. Okay, so this is what you need to understand, that don't give up by looking at the size of the question. It is going to be very simple, provided sometimes you have to go with the output and try to see now what logic you can make it. And with that logic, you write a program. Here, I didn't do anything fancy. It was a very simple and straightforward. Okay, I just looked at the output and I tried to figure out a logic from that. And based on that, I just wrote a program, and I hope it will work for any other situation as well. Okay, so that's all. I'm stopping my screen share now. With that, we come to the end of our session. The TCS NQT format for coding contains sections on MCQ, short coding, and long coding questions. We solved one question paper today, and we look forward to have you in our next videos as well. Thank you so much and have a great day.